There are many places in the world that should be visited on your own. An open mind and a kind heart is all you need. Even a single visit to such places will make your heart remember them forever. They make a lasting impression on tourists by their views and the history that stands behind them.
Let's go to one of such spots. Our little adventure is sure to ease your mind and soul. We are certain that after the trip you'll be anxious to return to this place again and again.
We invite you to one of the most beautiful Belarusian corners, the village of Sinkovichi, where a unique architectural monument, the Church of St. Michael the Archangel, is situated. It's a place of pilgrimage for hundreds of Orthodox Christians from Belarus and abroad.
It is one of the most interesting examples in the series of defense-like churches existed in the Belarusian architecture of the 15th century. It is also a brilliant example of the Byzantine and ancient Belarusian building tradition of the Orthodox Church. So, off we go!
10 kilometers from Slonim, on the border between Slonim and Zelva districts, in a beautiful location among thick forests and endless fields, near the village of Sinkovichi, a majestic and severe temple of defensive type was built more than 7 centuries ago. For centuries life had been running smoothly here, like the waters of the local river Bereza that surrounded the temple in the old days. The river grew shallower, a broad road turned into small paths, but time hasn't erased people's memories.
Sinkovichi was first mentioned in historical document at the end of the 15th century. In 1566 it was owned by Ivan Yesman. Later it belonged to Duke Puslovsky. By the end of the 19th century it consisted of 2 manors, Puslovsky's and Yesman's ones. Nowadays this tiny Belarusian village is famous for the unique church located nearby.
For as long as anyone can remember, the temple has been an integral part of the rural landscape. Close harmony with nature adds mysterious beauty to this place. Look around! What a fantastic sight! One can help feeling the charm of the blessed atmosphere.
The Church of St. Michael the Archangel, known as Mikhailovskaya Church, is full of mysteries and miracles. No one can tell the exact day of its construction. According to some sources, it was built in the 15th century.
Do you know any legends about the church?
Not many, I'm afraid.
Let me read the most widely spread one. One of the legends says that the church was founded by the Lithuanian Duke Vytautas as a gratitude for his miraculous rescue. Vytautas was sent to prison during the fight with his brother Yagailo, but in 1382 he managed to escape, disguised in a woman's dress. The Duke found shelter with his residents of Sinkovichi and promised them to build a fortified church there. He kept his promise, and the church was built in 1407. They say the most worshipped icon of God's Mother was kept there at that time. Unfortunately, it disappeared without leaving a trace.
According to another unapproved version, the church was built during the attack of Khan Kaidan in 1240. The inscription Anno Domini 1460 on the church bell found in the basement of the church was taken by some researchers for indicating the age of the church. But these legends have nothing to do with reality. In fact, at the end of the 13th century, in 1276, the great Duke Troidan allocated a part of land in Slonim neighborhood to the refugees from Prussia. They settled down and made a fort. It was this dilapidated castle that became shelter for Vytautas at the time of his persecution in the 15th century. In 1407 he rebuilt the castle into the church and dedicated it to St. Michael the Archangel. The numerous inscriptions dated back to the 12th and 13th century, which have been revealed on the walls inside the building, also indicate that the church is not less than 800 years old. However, the church is officially recognized as an architectural monument of the 15th century. A fortified temple in Sinkovichi is a unique monument of the historical development of the Belarusian architecture and one of the first churches of the defensive type in the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. It is stunning to know that there are only 3 temples of this kind in the world: St. Michael's Church in Sinkovichi, St. Mary's Nativity Church in Murovanka, and the Cathedral of the Annunciation in Suprazl in Poland. And the only church which was never rebuilt or destroyed during its existence is the church in Sinkovichi. No wonder that Sinkovichi Church is called a defense-like one. In those times, Belarus was the arena of home wars between the Kingdom of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. In addition to this, a new war with the Tatar-Mongol invaders threatened our lands from the east. As a result, the towns started the erection of unassailable castles and fortresses. But people who lived in small villages couldn't afford building expensive defensive constructions. So they fortified the existing churches, where they could find shelter during numerous sieges. The defense-like church fully justifies its title. It was not only the prayer house, but a shelter for the local people during the devastating wars and assaults. The liturgical and defense functions unification principle was laid as the basis of its architectural form. The building is flanked by 4 corner turrets, octangular on the main facade, and cylindrical on the backside. There was a time when the external walls were decorated with brick crosses. Their remains can still be seen on the south front side. On the second floor, there are arched machicolations. People rolled stones down them and poured boiling hot water and resin on the enemies' heads. There are a number of loopholes for observation and shooting above them. The church is an example of the Orthodox architectural diversity. Its architectural style represents a harmonious interaction between East, Byzantine, and West, Gothic influence. The elements of Gothic architecture include a double-pitched roof and a stellar vault in the right apsis. And Byzantine elements include the plan of the church itself with 3 altar apses and a molding along the perimeter of the building. The walls of the temple were never rebuilt, but the roof was renovated. In the 19th century, a local priest shingled the roof, making it higher. Today there is a chapel to the left of the church, where the priest's wife and his child are buried. In the 19th century, a bell tower was built in front of the temple. To enter the inner courtyard, you have to pass through the main gates, dramas, which were built in the 19th century as well. The plan of the church is asymmetrical. It should be mentioned that St. Boris and Gleb Church in Grodno has the same specific feature. This skewness can hardly be put down to the artisan's mistake. The most probable reason for this is fortification peculiarity. Researchers note that architectural design of St. Michael Church reminds lots of elements of Mir Castle. It's quite likely that both projects were designed by one and the same architect. No wonder Belarus was called the land of castles at that time.
Do you feel like entering the church? Let's do it!
The whole of the church is divided into 3 naves by 4 octagonal pillars. The naves are covered by cross vaults decorated with Gothic ribs. Plastered walls are separated by leasons, which form a single unit with the pillars of the arches. The thickness of the walls is 1.52 meters. It's interesting to know that many ancient Latin and Greek inscriptions have been revealed on the walls inside the church. On the southern side of the southeastern column, there is a Greek inscription from pastoral epistles of Apostle Paul. Be careful, brothers, so that no one involves you into studying philosophy, vain human delusions and nature powers, but not into studying Christ. One can't but feel an amazing atmosphere inside the church. The unique acoustics of the church song contribute to its originality. Special cross resonators mounted into the walls provide the temple with an equally smooth sound in any corner of the hall. The sound overwhelms you from the top to the bottom. This architectural feature proves to the greatest skillfulness of the builders of the church.
The winding stairways inside the towers lead to the attic, which appears to be the defensive tier of the church. Exploring the attic, you can realize that the church is part of the fort, whose main aim was to defend the settles of the village in case of war. Let's go upstairs.
The shrine of St. Michael Church is the icon of Most Holy Mother of God, of Tsitsaritsa, as they call it. It's a copy of the wonder-working icon Queen of All, of Athos Monastery in Greece. Located to the left of the entrance, the icon is hung with gold and silver jewelry, which are donated by people who have got faith healing. The icon of Most Holy Mother of God is believed to heal from cancer. It is also particularly venerated as a healer in female sterility. The first miracle when the icon granted its help to people happened 9 years ago. Since that time, the number of pilgrims who are eager to obtain its mercy has grown enormously. Those who beg for help from the bottom of their hearts receive it in a short time, says the rector of the church, Father Arseny. There has always been a holy spring not far from the temple. After the revival of the church, the territory surrounding the spring was ennobled. A font was built, as well as a pilgrim house. Here pilgrims can stay overnight, get ready for the holy service, forget the vanities of the world. St. Michael Church in Sinkovichi has seen a lot of trials throughout its history. Unfortunately, rocks can't speak. Otherwise, they could reveal their secrets, which are safely kept beneath the walls of this ancient temple. For centuries, the walls of the temple have heard endless praise. Nowadays, they shower their choicest blessing on everyone who happens to find himself within them. There is one more interesting fact which is worth telling. The ambassador of Belarus in Great Britain is known to present the Queen with a book about Belarus. Looking through the pages, the Queen came across the picture of St. Michael Church and was amazed greatly. She could hardly believe that there were such ancient and unique temples in our country.
Admired by the British Queen and worshipped by Belarusian people, the Church of St. Michael the Archangel towers up in the field to be seen from far away when you drive from Grodno to Slonim.
Today, this church Helidom is included into the list of tourist destinations of Grodno region. It has been nominated for the UNESCO World Heritage List.
But for Belarusian people, it has always been and still remains the place to take pride in, to get strength and inspiration from.
Welcome to Sinkovichi!